Hi everyone, I'm Megan Cordova. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist and a certified diabetes care and education specialist. I work at Sentara Williamsburg Regional Medical Center, and I'm also a breast cancer survivor. And so, like you, many of you are wondering, after you've had cancer or breast cancer, where do we go from here? What do we do? How can we prevent recurrence? And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm very passionate about this, and there's a lot of exciting research going on, so I hope to share a lot of this information with you today. So what are our priorities after treatment? The first thing is healing, and I want to make sure that you are well healed before you begin any new treatment, making sure that you're following all your doctor's recommendations. We are looking at achieving and maintaining a healthy weight, which we'll talk a little bit about more in just a second, increasing healthy foods, and increasing your physical activity. And I always like to start with a quote, and this is from our former Surgeon General. He came out with this in actually July 1988 about your choice of diet can influence your long-term health prospects more than any other action you might take. You may ask yourself, always ask, what do you think about this? And it's interesting because 40% of all cancers are actually preventable. We're seeing more and more research about how foods affect our health, diabetes and cancer and heart disease. And so when we look at healthy body weight and portion control, I want to show you this slide here because we know now that carrying extra weight increases, actually it's about 8 to 12 cancers. So we're trying to look at reducing body weight, and the thing that I like to say is about 5 to 10% over 6 months. If you can lose 5 to 10% of weight over 6 months, that can have a profound impact on your health. And one way that we look at, are you at a healthy body weight, is called BMI, which is body mass index. You can see on the slide there is a link, so you can kind of figure out your own body mass index. And what we're aiming for is if we can get down to about 25 or less. But I have to tell you, even a small amount of weight loss is going to be very beneficial. So even if it's 5 or 10 or 15 pounds. And so we want to look at what are some ways that we can help with some of this weight loss. And one of the things that we can do, which I'm going to get into more in just a second, is watching portions. And I do emphasize safe weight loss, 1 to 2 pounds per week. Eating slowly, we're going to talk about mindful eating, watching the sugary foods and the white flour foods, and eating out less often. So portions, what's happened to the portions is this country, they are out of control. Everywhere you go, things have just gotten big, big, and bigger. So I want to show you some portion sizes. So when you're looking at a piece of fruit, the thing that I always like to show is a tennis ball. So that would be the size of a piece of fruit versus a softball. And when I went to the market, I'll show you here, I picked up a couple of apples. Because if you see, this is really 1 serving of fruit, but even this apple is about 2 and this apple is about 3. And some of the apples are even bigger than that. So trying to use a tennis ball is a nice gauge. If you're looking at a portion of banana, generally half a banana is 1 serving, a whole banana would be 2 servings of fruit. I looked at some peaches here, and you can look here again. This is 1 serving, and this would be at least 2 servings. And look at the bagels. Look what's happened to the bagels. You have 1 serving here. This is about 3 servings. If you go to some of the bagel shops around town, those are more like 4 to 5 servings. So we're looking here again, it's not that we can't have it, but what kind of portion are we eating? And looking at a potato. A potato should be about the size of a computer mouse is what we're looking at. So although sweet potato is excellent, this is a large sweet potato, so this would be several servings, at least 3 or 4 servings. Same goes with the muffins, trying to use smaller portions. This is 1, and this is about 3 servings of muffin. When you're looking at a piece of meat, what we like to use is a deck of cards. So it's a great way to look at your serving size of meat, and it should look like a side dish on the plate, not the main dish. It should be more like a condiment. And so when you're looking at the portions, what's happening from 20 years ago today, look at the muffins, the burgers, the pizza, the drinks, the salads, everything has just gotten big, big, and bigger. So what you want to do when you're looking at your label, look at the portion size on the label. What I like to do, if the portion size is 6 or 8 crackers, what I like to do is just put them like in a little baggie. And so what you can do is portion out your crackers, put them in a little baggie, then put them all back in the box. It's the same as the 100 calories, except the 100 calorie bags, except it's a lot cheaper. The other thing that you can do, so I did that with a couple of things. carrots, you can do some like nuts and just portion them out. Measuring out your foods, you can use measuring cups so you can see about how much you're having. And using smaller plates and smaller bowls. So I have an example here. This is 1 cup of an oat cereal. And I wanted to show you this because when you take 1 cup of this cereal and you put it in this bowl here, you can see it doesn't look like hardly but a couple of bites, right? And so if you take this same cup here and you pour it in this bowl, and it looks like a whole bowl, right? In one of my classes, I had a patient who was keeping food records, and I noticed his blood sugars were high after, and I said, John, he wrote bowl of cereal down. I said, what kind of bowl are you using? And he's like, Megan, I use a mixing bowl. That's why you really want to be cognizant of what size portion that you're using. The other thing is if you look at your plate size, and it says you use 9-inch plates here. And so when you can use the smaller plate, the salad plate versus the dinner plate, and I'll tell you, if you start with this plate, we're going to put more on it. And they actually did a study with dietitians, and you think, oh, we know our portion sizes, right? Well, actually, we still put too much servings on here. And so when you can go with these smaller salad plates versus these large plates, excellent. Eating slowly. So how fast is everybody eating? It does take 20 minutes to get the signal from the stomach to the brain that you've had enough to eat. And you watch how fast. Sometimes people are just one bite after the other before they've even chewed it and swallowed it. So I always stress, put your fork down between bites. So you have your knife and fork. And I want you to think about, like even if you're eating an apple, cut your apple up in pieces and then take 1 bite at a time. Eat it, chew it, swallow it, then take another bite. Same with the bite of food. Put it in their mouth, put your fork down, chew it, swallow it. The other thing that you can do is you can set a timer because, as I said, it does take 20 minutes to get that signal from the stomach to the brain that we've had enough to eat. So if we eat fast, we're going to eat way too much. So see how long it takes you to eat and see if you can start slowing down. Another way to slow down is I don't know if you've tried using chopsticks. It'll probably take me a really long time, but trying to use some chopsticks to slow down. If you're right-handed, you can try to use the left hand. The other thing is if you drink water with your meals, that helps fill you up. Water's an appetite suppressant, so that may help you slow down. And the other thing is eat and only eat. So many times people, they're eating in front of the TV. They're on their cell phone or checking social media sites, or they're in the bedroom, or they're in the car. So we want to associate eating with the table. To sit down, eat, and only eat, not doing these other activities. Because what do you think can happen if you're doing other activities while you're eating? We're not really paying attention. Food is good. Let's eat it and enjoy it. And the other thing I like to say is really thinking about eating till you're comfortable. This is comfortable, this is full, this is stuffed. We know what this feels like, right? We've been out a holiday meal or out to dinner and it's like, oh, I ate too much. And even this is uncomfortable. So I want you to think about when you hit comfortable and stop. And if 3 bites are left on the plate, save it or throw it away. Because we are not helping ourselves to keep eating more when we're satiated and had enough. Because if we keep eating more, what happens is that the stomach can stretch. So the next time we go to eat, we're going to have to eat more to feel satiated. I ask yourself, really paying attention to when I hit comfortable, not full, not stuffed. And personally, I feel like this is one of the most important techniques for weight management. We're moving right now into what kind of diet we should eat. The standard American diet we know is high fat. 62% is processed foods, high sugar, and so we're trying to move away from that to a more of a whole food, plant-based diet. When we look at avoiding all these processed foods and we look at, avoiding all the prepackaged, I talked about trying to have some healthy prepackaged foods instead. You can see what a lot of people are eating all this processed, and it's just causing so much inflammation in the body. It's hurting our gut, and so we want to look at a more of a whole food, plant-based diet. The quote I like to use is Michael Pollan's quote. He says, "Eat food, not too much, mostly plants." I like to add a couple of adjectives to that. Eat real food, the real blueberries. Not too much, we talked about portions, so watching the portions, and then a colorful variety of plants. I always say you want your food to look like a rainbow. So you want lots and lots of color on your plate. The more color, the more nutrition, the more antioxidants and phytochemicals. So lots of color when you're planning your plate. And you can see this is the plate from the American Institute for Cancer Research. Look at all the color on the plate. Look at the tomatoes and the broccoli and the peppers. And so the more color that you can get, the more nutrition. And notice how the protein here is a side dish, not the main dish. And the plate I like to show here too is the plate I used. Half the plate I recommend is non-starchy vegetables. They are pack loaded with nutrition and phytochemicals. They are low calorie, they're low carb. Start asking yourself, instead of what meat am I having for my meal today, what vegetables am I having? I really recommend everybody have half their plate, lunch and dinner, with vegetables. Most of the patients I see, they get in maybe one vegetable a day, and maybe it's at dinner. So half the plate vegetables, 1/4 a lean protein or a plant protein, a whole grain, and then maybe add a piece of fruit. Something like this, you'll never go wrong. So just try to remember this plate, half the plate, non-starchy vegetables. Vegetables, vegetables, vegetables. Pack full of nutrition. When we're trying to eat more plant foods, as I said, and I'm going to mention a couple of things to you just to kind of take it to the next level. I want to show you tomatoes. So tomatoes are a nutrition powerhouse. They are packed loaded with lycopene, which is antioxidant. It has shown to help prevent DNA damage, decrease inflammation, and I'll tell you the highest tomatoes in lycopene are cherry tomatoes, San Marzano tomatoes, tangerine tomatoes, and black tomatoes. But this is quite interesting. If you take this tomato and you cook it in a little bit of olive oil, that lycopene is fat soluble. So when you cook it in a little bit of olive oil, you cook it for about 2 minutes, it increases the lycopene by 50%. You cook it for 30 minutes, it increases the lycopene by 250%. And a lot of research is done about the benefits of this lycopene in reducing several types of cancer. So put that on your list. The other one are mushrooms. Mushrooms are packed loaded with this soluble fiber. It's a prebiotic fiber called beta-glucan. We know the importance of the microbiome in the gut and how important it is that we keep a healthy gut. That helps with our immunity, it helps decrease inflammation. And the thing I'll say about mushrooms is make sure that you don't cut the stem off. Now, some of the mushrooms, my mushroom doesn't have a huge long stem, but some of them, we usually cut the stem off and then slice up the mushroom. Don't cut the stem off. The stem has twice as much of these beta-glucans, which is this soluble prebiotic fiber, which is helping your gut. The other one are kiwis. Kiwis are excellent. The nice thing about kiwis, you can cut them in half, you can scoop it out. And if you're making a smoothie, actually, you don't even have to take the skin off. You can just put it in the blender with the skin on. The kiwis, they give you that soluble fiber, which helps the gut, and 1 kiwi a day can help improve your gut in 24 hours and also can protect against DNA damage. So if you're going out in the sun, protects against that damage from the sunlight. So these are a couple of foods here. I will mention matcha. Matcha green tea is very high in polyphenols, which are so protective. They help decrease inflammation. When we look at the matcha tea, the leaves are actually grown in the shade. And because they're grown in the shade, it really supercharges these polyphenols. And so it has high amounts of these polyphenols. So I would encourage you to maybe try some matcha tea or even like a matcha powder. You can add some of those to your lattes or to your coffee or to your smoothies. When we're looking at beans, peas, and lentils, we are looking at adding some plant-based foods to our diet. Great source of fiber, great for your gut, lower inflammation. Black beans, chickpeas, red beans. I'm from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and Monday nights is red beans and rice night. Every Monday we would have red beans and rice and collard greens. So I would encourage you to try to get in at least one plant-based meal a day. If you can't do one a day, at least start with one a week. So trying to include some more plant proteins into your diet. And the other thing we look at is whole grains. Trying to get at least a minimum of 3 servings. If you can get all of your servings whole grains, that's even better. They have shown that 3 servings of whole grains a day helps reduce colorectal cancer. And so I just want to show you about a whole grain, what it is, because People are confused. They say, well, Megan, I buy honey wheat bread. Isn't that whole grain? Well, there's three parts to the grain here. There's the bran, which is the outer coating, packed full of nutrition. There's the germ, which is this little brown part right here, packed full of nutrition. And then the white part is the endosperm, and that's basically where your starch is. So when we process the grain in the United States, we take out the bran and the germ, the two best parts, and we process the middle, and that's how we get white flour. But what people don't realize is when you take out that bran and that germ, I use my pincushion to illustrate, but they're literally hundreds and thousands of these plant nutrients which are so disease protective. So what do you want to look for? You want to look for whole as the first ingredient. And so the example that I'll show you is I have two crackers here. And this says whole grain on here, right? But when you look at the first ingredient actually is enriched flour. And the second ingredient is whole wheat flour. So it's a baby step. It's got a little bit of whole grain. But then if you take it to the next level in something like this cracker here, if you look at the first ingredient, it's 100% whole grain. There are no other grains in here. I would suggest when you're looking at grains to try to include some different grains. You can see there's quinoa, there's barley, there's spelt, there's brown rice. Try to start adding some grains to your diet, some different grains. We all just think of wheat, but trying to start adding some new ones. So when we're looking at fiber, we have fiber in these whole grains. And I have to say that the research has shown that women who get in 30 to 35 grams of fiber a day have reduced risk of breast cancer, like 32%. To get into the 30 to 35 grams of fiber a day, always trying to get at least 10 grams at breakfast. And why do we want fiber? Because fiber helps prevent weight gain. The other thing about fiber is that it helps get rid of extra estrogen in our body. Fiber helps with the gut. It helps our microbiome. And fiber helps control blood sugar. There's so many reasons to get in fiber. Your fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans are all excellent sources. You have some listed there. But I would always say start with trying to get in 10 grams of fiber in the morning. If I show you my oatmeal has about 4 grams of fiber. So I recommend adding a fiber booster. So what can I do to bring this up to 10 grams of fiber? Well, one of the fiber boosters, chia seeds, flax seeds, basil seeds, hemp seeds. So I add some flax seed, or this is chia seeds here, then I can take it up to 10 grams, and then I already have a third of my fiber for the day. So start asking yourself, what can I do to increase the fiber in my diet? Look at avocados, 10 grams of fiber in an avocado. The more fiber, the better. Drink plenty of water when you are increasing your fiber. And this is just an example of a breakfast, lunch, and dinner, some ideas of how you can get more fiber into your diet. Whole grain cereals. I love to use oatmeal. It's a great source of fiber. Whole grain bread, brown rice, sweet potatoes, your berries, all excellent sources of fiber. We talked about the importance of fruits and vegetables, and I want to mention that frozen can be just as good, if not better, than fresh. Sometimes with fresh, we don't know how long it's been on the truck and how long it's taken to get in there, unless you can go to your farmer's market and get some excellent fresh produce. But frozen fruits are excellent. And I wanted to mention one, this is one I found that's just a super antioxidant. I love it because it has strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, cherries, and pomegranate seeds. And we know the benefits of pomegranates with helping lower inflammation. They're so good for our gut. They've got fiber. And so this is a nutrition powerhouse. And you know, something like dragon fruit. This is from a cactus. The color is just spectacular, packed full of nutrition. And then something like mangoes. And so you would want to make sure when you buy your frozen fruit that it does not have sugar added. It's just frozen fruit. But these are other different ways that you can get in your fruits throughout the day. So we're looking at sugar, red meat, alcohol, and soy and supplements. And we're trying to limit the amount of sugar-sweetened beverages. This is the interesting thing. We find that when we drink our calories, they register in our body, but they don't register in your brain. They don't fill you up. So if you look at one of these double gulps here, not only does this have 1.5 cups of sugar in it, this is the same thing as eating 16 slices of bread. And people are like, oh my gosh, I just ate a loaf of bread. And here's the thing. 200 extra calories a day is 21 pounds of weight gain in 1 year. So you look, this is my 5 pounds of fat here. So that's 4 of these. And so you can see how quickly it adds up. If you're drinking something like soda here, the soda here has almost 60 grams of sugar in here. That's a lot of sugar, sugar water. You look at energy drinks. So you want to be careful with any of those. Where do we want to get our energy? From food. So watching these high sugar drinks, and I always love to show an example of some of these juice drinks. This is a juice drink here. It looks pretty with raspberries and cranberries. But when you look at the label and you see that this has over 60 grams of sugar, it only has 20% juice. So it's sugar flavored water with some vitamins sprayed in. Being very careful, that's the first thing I always say, is cut out all the sugar sweetened beverages. I've seen a lot of patients who are drinking a lot of sweet tea, a lot of lemonade. So trying to consume more water, sparkling waters, unsweetened coffee, unsweetened tea. If you use juice, no more than 4 ounces of juice. And this is about a portion here. So you can kind of see what that looks like. So just limited, make sure it's 100% juice. And then if you're trying to calculate the sugar on a product, you look at the grams of sugar and you divide it by 4. Every 4 grams of sugar is 1 teaspoon of sugar. If a product has 40 grams of sugar, like a can of soda, that is 10 teaspoons of sugar. And that sugar has absolutely no nutritional value. It's just calories, and that sugar can start to cause all kind of problems in our body. They're finding that it's associated with weight gain and obesity, which can increase our risk for cancer, diabetes, heart disease. So I would encourage you to look, if you are drinking some sweet drinks, you can see how much sugar is in some of the drinks that you are having. And does sugar feed cancer? Question that comes up a lot. And I just point out that every cell in our body is fed by sugar, including the cancer cells. All the carbs you eat are all broken down into glucose, but sugary foods are not the most helpful foods. The sugar from a piece of fruit is going to be very different from a sugar in a can of soda. This has fiber, this has phytochemicals, antioxidants. So I want to encourage you to make sure you're having your vegetables and that you're having your fruits, because they are so delicious and also so good for you, and also your whole grains. And we look at red meat. Research does show that red meat and processed meats is a cause of colorectal cancer. So when we're talking about red meat, we're talking about beef, pork, and lamb. And I would just add that when you're looking at red meat, if you choose to eat it, make sure that it's lean. If it has round or loin in the name, that's the lean part of the animal. Sirloin, tenderloin, round steak. If it has prime or rib, that's the high fat part of the animal. I mean, a 9-ounce ribeye can have, 100 grams of fat. I mean, it's just amazing how much fat there is. The processed meats are going to be things like ham and bacon and hot dogs, and I would just have those very, very rarely and just save those for a special occasion, because the data does show an increased risk for colorectal cancer. So do you have to become a vegetarian? The thing that I like to emphasize plant forward. Let's not talk about what we can't have. Let's talk about what we want to have more of. We want to have more plants. Here again, I would recommend that you're trying to get in a plant-based meal several days a week. You can do like a black bean burrito. You can do, as I said, the red beans and rice. You can do veggie stir fry with tofu. You can do a veggie lasagna. You can do peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So there's a lot of different ways that you can get in plant-based meals. The website aicr.org has some excellent plant-based meals that you can take a look at, and lots of recipes. Alcohol. So we do want to limit alcohol. The research has shown even 1 drink a day for us women can increase our risk for breast cancer. The guideline is no more than 1 drink a day for women, no more than 2 drinks a day. What is a drink? Like a 5-ounce wine, a 12-ounce beer, 1 to 1.5 ounces of hard liquor. The less, the better. So what I would say is get creative, use some sparkling water. One little mocktail that I like to use, and I have this often, because one of the another food to talk about is pomegranates. So this is a little pomegranate juice here. Pomegranates are actually high in Akkermansia, and that is a good gut bacteria. They find that people who are thin have very high amounts of this Akkermansia. And so a lot of benefits with pomegranates, with cranberries, and also grapes. So what I did is I have a little bit of just 2 ounces, not a big old glass of juice, because that's a lot of calories, a lot of sugar. So just a little bit of pomegranate juice, and then I diluted it with just some sparkling water, your favorite sparkling water. And this is actually a pomegranate dragon fruit sparkling water, no calories, no sugar. And then I add a little bit of lime. You can put a little bit of mint. But this is a great, refreshing kind of mocktail, so you can feel like you're enjoying your drink. Just try to use alcohol more occasionally, and maybe try some of these mocktails here. We're looking at soy. So soy actually is a very healthy plant protein, especially when used in place of animal protein. We kind of need to get rid of the soy myth, because soy is actually very protective. The phytoestrogens in soy actually are anti-estrogenic, so they actually protect the endogenous estrogen in our body from attaching to the alpha cells. So they're very protective. There was a study done at Vanderbilt University with about 5,000 women who had had breast cancer. Those that had 10 grams of soy a day had a 32% reduction in breast cancer recurrence. What is 10 grams of soy? That is a half to 3/4 cup of edamame, is one of my favorite things. It's high protein, high fiber. A cup of soy milk. Whenever you can get the whole soy foods versus a lot of the processed soy foods, you're just going to get more nutrition. Soy is excellent for us, and I would encourage you to have a little bit of soy each day. Do you need a supplement? Not unless you have maybe a low vitamin D or B12 or a low bone density. We don't want to use supplements for cancer prevention. And so we want to get our food, our nutrition from the food, not from a pill. They find that when you take the food and you extract the supplement, like they did that with beta carotene, and put it in a pill, it doesn't have the same effect. We have this synergistic effect of all these antioxidants when you're eating the real food versus just taking out one thing of the food and putting it in a pill. And the thing I am going to mention is spices. So there's a lot of research coming on about the benefits of spices. They are superchargers. Do you know that cloves is highest on the list with antioxidants? It is a powerhouse. I would encourage you to start adding spices. And I think this is a very interesting study they looked at. So they took oatmeal. So oatmeal for antioxidant, I think it had about 130. And so what they did is they added a little bit of cacao powder, added a little bit of turmeric, and added a little bit of cinnamon. So you take this oatmeal and you add these 3 spices. The antioxidant went from 130 to almost 1,200 by just adding spices. A lot more research is coming out. We know the benefits of spices. I would start adding spices to all of your foods. I'll give you a recipe, and this is one that I saw from another dietitian, Rachel Beller, especially to help with breast cancer prevention and just help with inflammation. And so the recipe looks at about 2 tablespoons of onion powder, 2 tablespoons of garlic powder. Then you would take 1 tablespoon of turmeric, and then you would use 2 teaspoons of parsley, and then 1 teaspoon of black pepper. What I did is I just got an empty spice jar, mixed them all up together. And an easy recipe that you can do is you can take 2 cups of broth, like vegetable broth, 1 cup of quinoa, use 1 teaspoon of this spice blend, cook it for about 15 to 20 minutes, and you've got an excellent, nutritious side dish here. Quinoa is a great whole grain. It's got protein, and then if you want to take it to the next level, you could add some of those sauteed tomatoes, you could add some carrots, you can throw in some black beans. So you can really take it up to the next level. So I would encourage you to really start adding lots of spices, the ginger, the rosemary, the thyme, to all your foods, because they find these spices together has this synergistic effect. Even when you add turmeric and black pepper together, it increases those antioxidants. So the 80-20 rule, what are you doing 80% of the day? And that's what I always like to say. It's consistent. Am I being pretty consistent with my diet every day? Am I diversifying and have different types of fruits, different types of vegetables and beans? Then that's going to give you the cumulative effect. So just think about, what am I doing most of the day? There's nothing we absolutely can't have unless there's a medical reason you can't have it. Anything can be incorporated, but what are you doing most of the day? That's what's going to count. I always say start today, one positive change, and if that positive change is adding more vegetables to your diet, then that would be an excellent. So any positive change you make is going to be beneficial. So here's some websites that can help you get some more information, and you can find some wonderful recipes on this website and some credible information. So I would end this by saying start today. Any positive change that you can make, and if that's just adding some more vegetables, adding a little bit more fiber, watching your portions, adding more activity, any little change that you can do is going to help you. So I wish you all the best on your continued journey, and stay well.